evening, everyone, and happy Friday. Today, you're stuck with me and Joe, our fearless leader, is tied up with some family stuff. But we wanted to make sure to bring you an update since we haven't brought you one this week, and we actually do have a lot of news and things to share. So for those who haven't met me yet, I'm Kelsey Erickson Stroifert. I'm our Chief Public Affairs Officer. And then I'm joined by my fearless colleague, Joe Montecero, who is our COO. So let's dive into it. First of all, why is this the first update of the week? Well, because we have all been extremely busy in Washington, D.C., lobbying on behalf of the industry. This was National's annual public affairs conference. Leaders from our industry, really all across the country, came together in D.C. to learn the latest and, most importantly, lobby our legislators on Capitol Hill. I'm going to ask Joe for a recount, but I think Texas was either the most represented state or maybe the second most represented. Joe, did we ever get a clear answer on that?
We're waiting for a recount on the numbers, but even if there's only one or two different, the one thing that I can say for certain, and we can all agree, is that the Texas delegation was there. We were loud. People definitely knew we were in DC last week, and we are definitely committed to having an even larger delegation there next year.
Absolutely. Y'all know Emily well enough to know at this point that as excited as she was by our success bringing people to DC, she doubled our target for next year. So we're all ready for the challenge. But first and foremost, we want to thank every single person who took the time to come with us to DC. We know it's really hard to step away from your businesses right now, especially. And these members gave up 3 to 4 days to be with us in DC. So thank you. I promise you, you made an impact. And from hanging out with all of you, I think you had some fun too. So that's first things first. Now let's kind of share a little bit about what we did in DC. Joe, myself, Corey, Dawn, and Melissa, all on our TRA leadership team, each led delegations of Texas restaurateurs to visit our legislators on Capitol Hill. Joe, I think we had 23 visits in total, if I'm not mistaken.
23 visits across 6 different state buildings on the House and the Senate side, running back and forth. We were blessed to have a great day of weather. People who've been with us in the past remember a very sweaty, hot day running around DC. And really, there needs to be huge kudos to Kelsey and to Melissa, who spearheaded organizing all of this, because it was a little bit of an exercise in controlled chaos mixed with just a finely tuned machine to make sure that we were getting from place to place and spending as much time as possible advocating with the legislators. So a big round of applause and thanks goes to the two of them for all their hard work.
Well, thank you for that. It really was a team effort. We are a small but scrappy staff, as you all know well at this point. And each of those meetings really was incredibly valuable. You know, these meetings are important so legislators, one, know who to ask when they have questions. That's a big piece of this, is just reminding them that we are here as the voice of the Texas food and beverage industry to be a resource, answer questions, make sure they understand how different policies impact our industry. That we definitely accomplished in spades. And then we also had several kind of policy issues that we wanted to talk to them about. RRF replenishment, that will come as no surprise to anyone. We lobbied each of these offices to help us finally get that job finished, replenish the RRF so everyone who's eligible in line will get the money they deserve. I'm going to be completely honest with you, we got a lot of mixed reactions to that ask. There's no doubt that legislators on both sides of the aisle want to see the RRF replenished, but unfortunately the two parties have completely different ideas about how we pay for it. And when you're dealing with the US Senate, which is basically 50-50 Republican Democrat, you can't have such a fundamental disagreement like that and move the bill forward. So we continue to work the issue. We're not saying the door is closed completely or it's hopeless, but we've promised from the beginning of this pandemic to be honest with you, to not give you false hope. And so I just want to make sure you know that we are giving it our all. We mentioned it in all of these meetings, but the basic politics of this are still very much up in the air. We'll continue to bring you updates, of course, as we move forward on that. The other issues we talked about, ERTC reinstatement, getting those payments out more quickly is key. immigration reform and a new visa program that can really jumpstart some of our labor replenishment that is so critical right now. And I like to remind folks, it's not just the labor shortage in our restaurants, it's every single step of our food supply chain. Our goods are going to go up in cost, go down in availability if we don't have enough truckers, if we don't have enough people working in meat processing plants, supply chain distributions. Y'all know this better than me, but we need tools like immigration reform, new visa programs to address those problems. And then also we did some defense in terms of protecting the tip credit. There's no bill being considered right now to get rid of it, but one came up just this past year that we were able to successfully defeat. So we always have to be educating these new staffers, new legislators, people who have heard misnomers and basically just false information before on what the tip credit is and how it actually serves our employees and our businesses really well. I was talking to one of our team members who had a chance to talk to an actual congressman, not just the staff, but a congressman who actually thought that servers got $2.13 an hour. They didn't know that you have to make them whole and they have to at least get the minimum wage if the tips don't clear that minimum wage bar. So that's just an example of why this work is so critical. We can't assume people know our industry, and hearing from operators directly is so important. Joe, any other takeaways from your meetings?
You know, it was amazing to hear everyone talk about how much they care about our industry. I think we've seen that through the entire pandemic. Everyone ended every meeting with, you know, and what can we do? We of course, as Kelsey said, asked for the moon because that's what we're here to do. The tip credit conversations were absolutely fascinating because there is such a misconception on the part of anyone who's never been in our industry. And yet we had one staffer who was a waitress during college and was an exact personification of that idea that, you know, 9 out of 10 Americans start in our business. And so it's just reminding them of, well, if you experienced it, think about everybody else who's in the industry that experiences it today. But it was an incredibly productive and positive week.
Absolutely. I would say, just after talking to Emily, after talking to all of our operators who were in these meetings, the clear takeaway for us was we cannot be a one-trick pony. RRF replenishment is incredibly important. We are going to continue to hammer that point at every opportunity, at every way we know how, but we cannot put all of our eggs in that basket. We have to be playing defense on issues like the tip credit or the 80/20 lawsuit that we filed. We have to work on things like ERTC, and maybe even more than all of those things, we have to be looking ahead. You know, I was thinking today about this idea of the new normal. Well, the new economic normal for us for the foreseeable future are these cost increases, inflation, supply chain. Those are issues that are going to be with us for a while, unfortunately, because they're part of this global economic shift that we're seeing. I'm sure many of you saw this morning the news that our US economy actually shrank for the first quarter of this month for the first time since the pandemic started. So this is our new normal now, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing solutions and the facts to the table so we can address those problems together. So with that, got to do another ERTC plug with Adesso Capital, because it truly is making a huge difference for some of our members, right, Joe?
No, this has possibly been one of the best partnerships we could have ever brought to you all. I'm going to start by saying that if you haven't yet checked, and what I mean by checked is even if you already filed an ERC and you believe you got your money back, you need to call Adesso and have that 15-minute free consultation, because they'll just triple check you did it right. It's 125 pages of tax legislation that went into the ERC. No one becomes an expert on that overnight, but Adesso Capital has dedicated themselves to doing it the right way. We've been working with them since the end of February, and to date, across only 35 operators, we've helped bring $11.7 million back to their restaurants. The thing that's important for everyone to remember is, one, this is a lot more than you're going to get out of a grant program like the RRF. This is money you're entitled to. It is a credit back on taxes you've already paid. And so it's not going to run out. It's taking the IRS a little while to get it out there, and we have been very clear they got to speed things up. And Adesso has some temporary lending options for people who just need access to that cash quickly. But we could not be more pleased with the support and the customer service and the help that they're giving to all of our members. If any of you have questions, you can always reach out to Emily, Kelsey, myself. We're happy to do personal introductions for you to that team. But they have been incredible. And while there are still a couple hundred in the line to get theirs processed, once you give them all your documentation, you will be amazed at just how fast they move to assess exactly what you're owed and get you that money in hand. And so again, I'm going to say the numbers because it's pretty impressive when you do the math, that $11.7 million have gone to 35 Texas operators. So again, if you haven't, please look at the information below, click that link, have that 15-minute conversation with them. You can refile an amended tax return on previous years. So if there was any mistake made and you'd already filed this, they'll file it again for you. Don't let this money pass you by because it belongs to you.
Big kudos to Joe and Ben on our team who really brought that partnership in. It's just really exciting to see our members get money that they are owed back from the government, right? Couple other updates and kind of exciting things happening at the state level. I mentioned supply chains and the labor shortage and inflation. These are issues that all of our lawmakers are really tuned into. I feel like we were talking about it a year ago and no one else was listening, but the good news is they're now listening and they want our input on how bad is the problem and how do we address it. So just as one example, many of you know our TRA board treasurer, Skeeter Miller of the County Line Barbecue Restaurants. He was able to testify on our behalf this past Wednesday in a House Business and Industry Committee. We'll put the link below so you can go back and watch it if you want. He did a great job, as he always does. He always brings really specific facts and anecdotes and examples that really make these legislators listen. It's a real problem, not a hypothetical one, and he does such a good job of illustrating that. He's actually going to be back at the Capitol next week to testify on inflation specifically and how that's impacting our industry. So again, huge thanks to Skeeter for being such a committed and effective spokesperson for us. And then in addition to that, we submit written testimony every time these hearings come up so that we can make sure our legislators have the data, have some of the policy solutions that we're recommending, even on things like daycare and childcare, which keep coming up as one of the major barriers to entry for many of our employees in other industries. So that's exciting to see our lawmakers really start to dig into these systemic problems that we can't solve on our own as an industry. One more tidbit, TABC, everyone's favorite state regulatory authority. I do want to just remind folks about late fees. When TABC started the Ames rollout, they waived many kind of basically license fees that would normally apply if you apply late or miss a deadline. Now that Ames is much more smooth, much more in effect, they are no longer waiving those late fees. So make sure you're paying attention to when your licenses expire. If you do temporary events, please make sure you're checking when those need to be filed so that you don't have a late fee, because again, that sort of forbearance that was happening earlier is no longer in effect, and we just don't want people to be surprised by a big bill. We'll put a link below. More information is going to come out from TABC next week, so we'll share that with you as always. Joe, back to you.
And then one last thing is, before we know it, July is going to be here, and that means it's time for the Texas Restaurant Show and for our annual Lone Star Bash featuring the Texas Restaurant Awards. So a couple of things about that. Number one, the team has done an absolutely phenomenal job. Kudos to Tony and Haley and Dave that have us at almost 90% sold on the exhibitors for the show. We have some incredible companies coming this year to show you what is next. Our education sessions, we'll start announcing one by one the different speakers and sessions for you to start planning your schedule. But a lot of exciting different sessions about just exactly where we go from here. And as Kelsey said earlier, what does the new normal feel like coming out of the last 2 years? So if you've not yet registered, please look below, click get yourself registered, and more importantly than anything is get your hotel room in Dallas booked. We've got a block for everybody at the Omni. And then on Sunday, July 10th, will be the Lone Star Bash. You saw us announce last week, Stoney LaRue will be playing. So it'll be a very fun concert. We also are reaching out to all of our chapters to consider who they would like to send to be part of the chef and mixology exhibition. So that's a new thing this year, is the mixology component, but we will have 30 chefs and 15 mixologists that will be serving samples at Lone Star Bash. And you will all have a chance to vote this year. So someone is going to be going home with the bragging rights mixology cup and chef plate to hold on to for the year, and then bring it back when we're in Houston in 2023 for the next winners. So nothing like a good little bit of healthy Texan competition to get you going. We have VIP tickets this year that include the awards ceremony, the main event, the concert, as well as a special after party. And then the general admission tickets for the chef exhibition, mixologists, and the concert. For those of you who are local to Dallas, if you'd like to give your staff a fun night out, we also have some concert only tickets available just to come and see Stoney LaRue play. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some phenomenal sponsors helping to support this incredibly important event that goes to support the foundation. And so some of the activations include everything from a mechanical bull to getting your own pair of 85th anniversary commemorative TRA boots. So it will definitely be a Lone Star Bash not to be forgotten soon. So again, click the link below, get your tickets now. Chapter table tickets are going on sale Monday. So chapter chairs and vice chairs, you'll be receiving information about all of that from the planning committee chair, Vanessa Miller, over the weekend. And that's pretty much it from us, guys. As always, be good to each other. Have a phenomenally busy weekend. Hopefully find a little bit of time to rest and enjoy the nice weather that's back. And we will be back next week with more for you all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.